All right, guys, I'm now joined by an MMA pioneer, a longtime friend of mine, Tom Atencio, who I haven't really ever questioned with some of the things I've always wanted to question him about. Tom, what's happening, pal?
How you doing, Mr. Sonnen?
Well, I got to tell you, I've been curious. I've been curious for a decade. I have wanted to ask you questions about Affliction, Tom. Look, let me tell you my timeline with Affliction. All of a sudden, everybody that likes MMA is wearing a t-shirt that says Affliction on it. And the next thing I know, Affliction is putting on shows that I'm live at. I happen to be a corner man. I was with Matt Lindland. They were awesome. And the next thing I know, the shows aren't around. I don't see as many t-shirts anymore. I've just always wanted to ask you, what happened? If you were to walk me through Affliction, how would you do it? Where would you begin?
It was a good run. It was short for me, but I mean, honestly, it was incredible. And I've said it, just recently. I made mistakes. I think that's the biggest problem personally is that, and you knew. I mean, first, thank you very much for what you said in the last the little cast that you did, saying I'm a great guy, blah blah blah. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate that. But I think that was part of the problem is that, like you said, I was a fun guy. I probably drank too much. I probably had too much fun. I did work hard, but I think part of the problem was I don't know if I didn't take it as serious as I should have, but I probably didn't. I had too much fun. It was something that I was thrown into, and I probably, looking back, it's easy to say I probably partied too much, and I should have focused a little bit more and being serious than having as much fun as I really did. That's my side.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
Tom, but start from the very beginning with me, because Affliction was a t-shirt company. I mean, correct? That's what you got into. I believe you partnered with Todd Beard. I know I'm close on this, but you guys were just going to do t-shirts. Never had a vision of getting into live sport. Am I right about that?
100%. So here's the deal with that. It was a clothing brand, t-shirt brand. And I know from before there were a couple things that you did say wrong. Todd was not the lion's share of owner. There were 4 partners, and Todd brought me in because the other 2 partners and Todd and I all worked together for years, like 5 years prior to that. Todd came up with the concept. Todd brought them on board. I actually started fighting. My first fight was at 38 years old. So I fought for Total Combat in Tijuana. And Todd wanted me to work for him. And I came and I started working for him. And, I started thinking, oh, I want to be a fighter. Dumb idea. But anyway, I was thinking about going that way. And Todd goes, you know what, Tom, I want you to come and work for me. I want you to help me out. I said, no problem. So he started paying me, started doing it. I was training at the time with Marco Huas. And Todd goes, you know what, Tom, after that fight, he goes, I don't want you fighting, Tom. I want you to come and work for me. He made me a ridiculous offer. And I was married at the time. And I spoke with her, and we agreed that it would be really dumb. I spoke with Marco too. And Marco's like, Tom, you're 38, man. It's probably not a good idea to get in the fight industry this late. But yeah, so I took his offer. And what happened was, because I was in the fight industry already, I started sponsoring people. And Justin Levins was the first person I started sponsoring. Justin was my best friend. And Justin was fighting for the WEC. He was doing extremely well. He was wearing the stuff, and it was starting to get exposure. It was starting to build. And I was building relationships. I met, I think, your manager, Mike, back then as well. And Mike started introducing me to people. So it started getting big in the MMA industry. And then Justin fought Evan Tanner at the Honda Center in UFC, and it was Justin's first fight. Well, what happened was they didn't want us to pay Justin. And I knew, because, like you, I always knew the industry was going to blow up. And so I paid Justin my own money. I paid him $1,100. That's all he wanted. I didn't think it was a lot of money at the time. And so I paid Justin $1,100, and he walked out in the UFC against Evan Tanner. And the exposure that it got was phenomenal. And the rest of the guys realized that, and they're like, wow, okay, Tom, we want you to handle the sports and entertainment marketing. So that's where my position came. That's where they decided to put me. Because I've always been a t-shirt guy. I've been screen printing since I was 15 years old. T-shirts. I've been involved in t-shirts since I was 15. So the graphic side of it, the art side of it, I've always done. And then they got me and they put me in it. Now, Todd was the one who put me in that position, and Todd did give me a percentage of the companies. Now, I was always loyal to Todd because Todd gave me that. None of the other guys did. None of the other guys wanted to give me anything. So for me, I was always loyal to Todd. And, being long-winded, that's kind of how we got to the point where we got into the MMA industry. We started out as a motorcycle and tattoo brand. That's how it had originally started.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So when Todd offers you the job after you have your fight in Tijuana and he says, hey, come work with me, that was then in the clothing business. That's what Todd did. He was in the clothing business. This is where Affliction came from. Now you're involved and you start sponsoring other fighters. Do I have the timeline right?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
So you get on some pretty big guys. I mean, I want to say you were on Chuck Liddell. I want to say I saw Dana wearing Affliction stuff. I know for sure Rampage, who was red hot, particularly at that time. And these guys were bringing in good exposure. And I remember you were more than a .com. I could go to stores all the way up to Nordstrom's and see some line of brand of Affliction.
Yes, absolutely. And so what happened was Josh Barnett was one of the first guys I started sponsoring after Justin Levens, Scott Smith. And then through Scott, I met Mike. And then Mike introduced me to Randy. And then Rampage, I met Rampage through other people. So it started snowballing. And I know that you said, and the other thing that, Dana wore it. And Dana, I was far bigger before Dana ever started wearing the stuff. I do remember distinctly speaking with Dana on the phone. And now I was a fight photographer too. So I used to photograph all of, in Northern California, Paul Smith. He had an organization, why can't I think of the name of it? So I used to drive up to Northern California and photograph the fights. So I was on the phone with Dana. Dana said, yeah, no problem. I go, you don't send me your sizes. I'll send you some stuff. He goes, no problem at all. And one of Dana's things, I remember this, remember it like yesterday. Dana goes, what do you want from me? And I didn't think about it. It didn't register. And I go, well, I'd love to come and start photographing your events. And I think that rubbed Dana wrong. I think, like I learned, everybody always wants something. There's always an angle. Somebody's always trying to get an angle into you. And that was, I think, to be honest, I think that was what I rubbed Dana wrong, because I wanted to come to the UFC fights and start photographing. Now, keep in mind, it was still small at the time, and I would have been able to. It was when Sherdog and everybody was always at the events. I was photographing Terry Trouble Cox events, King of the Cage, IFC. IFC was Paul Smith's event up in Northern California. So, I mean, like I said, I've always been involved in the MMA industry, and that's how I ended up bringing that. I used to print tap-out shirts in my garage. I used to be good friends with Charles, and I started printing their shirts. And Charles used to take me to all the smaller underground events in Long Beach and all these other areas. So that's how it ended up in the MMA industry.
Okay. So, Tom, at some point you're sponsoring athletes, the big name guys. I mean, again, the Chucks, the Randys, the Rampages of the world. Affliction is absolutely everywhere. If I remember it correctly, the UFC at some point pulled your guys' branding sponsorship. Said, okay, Affliction, no more. Guys don't wear Affliction anymore. At which point you guys then go, then we're now going to do it in our own events and start our own live event. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, why did you get pulled? Let's start with that. What happened at the UFC where Dana steps in and goes, no more putting your clothing on our guys?
So what happened was, we, behind closed doors, we talked, and Josh Barnett said, you guys should start an MMA company. You guys have everybody as it is. Nobody's happy. You guys should start this. So we talked about it, nothing more. And when I said, and you brought it up before, there was a mole, well, it got back to Dana somehow. And that was the same time that we came up with the idea of photographing Randy and Fedor. Okay, we talked about that, and that would be a great stunt. They can't fight. We knew they couldn't fight, but we thought about that. When we were talking about it, it got back to Dana. Then we did the poster. The poster went really big. It was really huge, and then we got banned. They said, no more. You guys cannot wear Affliction in this company. Which is the reason why the first event was called Banned.
Banned. I remember. Good marketing, by the way. Good marketing calling it Banned. That was
And when
smart.
you said you had brought that up, who threw the first punch or who started? I can honestly say it was probably us because we talked about it, but we really had no intention of doing it. We talked about it. Josh was talking to us about it. Josh was giving us ideas. Josh, I ended up going to Pride with Josh for one of his fights. So yeah, we started doing it in this, and I was traveling around and I was bringing bigger people on board. I was going everywhere and bringing bigger and bigger and bigger people on board. And, so yeah, we probably started, but because they had a mole, they had somebody there, they got wind of it.
Okay, gotcha. So they step in, they pull the t-shirts, and now boom, what you were talking about doing, you're now seeing that, well, we kind of have to do this. Am I right? You started out in California, you teamed up with somebody. I seem to remember Oscar De La Hoya even at a press conference. I remember President Trump being at the weigh-ins. So, I mean,
Yes.
once you guys started though, Tom, I mean, in all fairness to you, you guys went all in and you had some pretty good momentum.
Oh, we went deep. I mean, and one of the things like you spoke about, the pain though, and you and I talked about this before. The payments of these guys were ridiculous. And I get it. Like I said, hindsight's 2020. You know, when you're taking care of your family and you're trying to get all you want, that's what you look at. You don't see the big picture. Most people don't see the big picture in, okay, let's work with this organization. And because we've seen all these other organizations go under, maybe we should work with this organization and not take as much and try to make them work. It didn't work that way, and I talked about this too. There were some managers that just took complete advantage of Todd. And I get it, I mean, it's their job. And as a manager, if that's what I had, that's what I would want too. But they did. And I've always said it too in interviews. It wasn't me. I knew that Tim Sylvia, his biggest payday prior to us was only $14,000. He made $14,000 to fight and win. That was 7 to fight, 7 to win. And when Todd paid him, I was telling him, no, man, it's too much, too much, too much. He wanted what he wanted, and he paid him. So that was one of the biggest issues.
Okay. I remember that. I want to say Tim, I mean, because that was public, but I want to say Tim was paid 700 grand or it was 800 grand. It was a huge payday. Am I right? Oh my.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, right. And Fedor, he fought Fedor, got the choke. I mean, I remember it very clearly. It was like a lifetime ago, Tom, and I also feel like I watched it yesterday. It was one of these things. Great events. I remember being at those live and the energy and the momentum you guys had. I remember the first one was like a $2 million gate, and I just remember everything was going so well. Tom, one day I was in the state of Washington, cornering a buddy named Joel for a little regional show fight, and I get a press release. It comes across my smartphone, and it was supposed to be Fedor versus Barnett. Barnett gets pulled from it through the commission, and you guys said, we're done. We're not rebounding. We're done. What was that decision like, and what was that day like? And by the way, why didn't we get a replacement for Barnett? Why was that so meaningful that Josh had to be there?
So here's the deal. To answer that question, what I said and what you said didn't revisionist history, whatever. That's what I was told. Whether it was true or not, I was scrambling. So I got the phone call, I believe, from Josh or his girlfriend, and they told me, or somebody told me, I don't remember exactly. Somebody called me and I'm freaking out. I'm scrambling. I'm trying to get a fighter. I'm on the phone with managers. I'm on the phone talking to everybody and anybody. And I remember I wasn't at the office at the time. I was out. And I'm talking to Vitor Belfort himself. I'm talking to his manager. I'm trying to get all these guys, and everybody's willing to do it. It was just about negotiations. During that time, we had in-house counsel. Our lawyer at the time was talking to pay-per-view, and he was talking to the UFC. The reason he called the UFC is because we kind of felt like, or they kind of felt, I wasn't involved in it. So they kind of felt like maybe we should just give up and just do a deal with the UFC before we defunct, before we go under. I was told, because the posters did not have card subject to change, that pay-per-view stood the chance, which mean us, stood the chance of being sued by anybody and anyone whoever wanted to, whoever purchased it and wanted to. Whether that's true or not, and whether that was real, that's what I was being told at the time. And like I said, that's why I brought that up. That's what I was told. I don't know if it was true because I'm scrambling. I'm trying to get fighters, and that's what happened. So they called UFC. The in-house counsel called UFC. talk to pay-per-view, and that was the decision that they came up because we were new to the industry. We didn't know how to handle this. I thought we could just get somebody else and just replace it and do it again. So that's what I took as true. I never looked into it. I never thought twice about it because I thought it was the way it was.
Tom, when you say that in-house counsel called the UFC, for what? Did you guys end up selling to the UFC or what did the UFC have to do with the closure of Affliction? I don't remember that part.
Because it's my understanding, and again, I don't know exactly. It's my understanding that the UFC purchased the video, so any of the content they own, and it was to also, I know this for a fact, it was also to do a deal with them that we could start sponsoring again. Because remember, right after that, we started sponsoring again. So that was the deal. So we didn't lose everything. We ended up making a deal with the UFC to have the rights of all of our footage and then to be able to start sponsoring at a fee. And I think that may have been, I'm not sure, but that's why, remember, the UFC started charging the clothing companies and everything else. They started charging money from the clothing companies for them, and then you had to pay the fighter. But you had to be approved first to the UFC, and then you had to pay the fighter. If you weren't approved, if you weren't paying the UFC the money and approved by them, you could never sponsor anybody.
Right. I recall that. I recall when that happened, and that sent shockwaves through. I mean, in all fairness, that's just kind of the way things are now.
Yeah.
But I remember at that time that being a big ruffle. I mean, even the fighters were upset. It kind of changed the management structure. For some guys, it opened opportunities. For some guys, it closed doors. I did forget that, though, what you said. I forgot that when you guys did that deal with them, that it then opened up the marketing arm again. Look, were you happier when you got that? I mean, it sounds like you got back to where you wanted to be anyway, which was, I mean, did you ever want to be in the live sport business, or was that something you were forced to do? Tough question, right? Tough question.
Well, yeah. Well, because I'm looking at it from my point of view. For me, it was a dream come true. And I always said that in interviews. I would say, this is a dream come true. I've got the best of both worlds. I've always been in the garment industry since I was 15, and I've always loved the fight industry. I remember growing up watching with my dad, Hagler versus Hearns, Oscar de la Hoya fighting, all these guys boxing, all the Mexican fighters. I grew up watching combat sports. I've always loved combat sports. So for me, being in the industry, it was a dream come true. I was at the forefront. I was doing matchmaking. I was handling the events. It was a dream come true. So for me, yeah, I look back and I wish I was still doing that. I mean, I couldn't imagine still being in that spotlight and living that life that I was living. But at the same time, like I said, I had too much fun. I should have stuck back, or I wish somebody would have taken me aside and said, Tom, you need to take this a little bit more serious. But that's on me, So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true for me. My inspiration was Pride. I don't know if you remember, and you spoke about this too, the dirtbag band or dirt band, whatever you called it, that was Megadeth. So it wasn't Metallica, it was Megadeth. And you were absolutely right about that. Using them was kind of a waste for a couple of reasons. Number one, the money that we spent on it. Number two, it doesn't really translate, in my opinion, it doesn't really translate on TV as well. Watching a band on TV to me is it's just not that great. And like you said, a halftime intermission with a band, if you don't like that band or you can't relate to it, it doesn't do well. So for me, yeah, I agree with you. The band wasn't a good thing. But I don't know if you remember, from Pride, I brought all the fighters out on stage and they all stood before the first event. And that was definitely from Pride. There was a lot of things that I loved about Pride. But not to take anything away, the UFC, in my opinion, they have always done it right. You go to a UFC event and it's always from the minute you get there to the end, it's just charged. It's going all the time and it doesn't get boring. I've been to other events where it's just boring. Pride, as a matter of fact. You go to Pride and you're tired by the end of by the main event. You're like over it because there's no electricity. There's nothing to keep you awake and keep you going in that. And to me, that was the biggest thing is that's what I wanted to bring to the event, is that action, wanting to go to an event, going to one event and then wanting to go back, wanting to keep going, wanting to keep going. And to me, the UFC does that.
Sure. And Tom, fight promotion is one of these things, like, you can't learn it or be taught it. You have to take the risk and jump in it. There's no book in any library in the world that you can check out that'll teach you fight promotion. There's no college course anywhere in the lands where you can get a degree in fight promotion. You got to get in and start learning. So being through everything you've been through, and you're seeing these guys pop up all the time, and for the most part, they're losing a lot of money. If you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring promoter, what would you tell him? What would you tell him? Look out for this.
Make sure that you manage your money correctly. Make sure that whatever you're putting into it, you either break even or you have enough money that if you don't break even, you get close to breaking even, and you have enough to sustain you. In any business, really, you have enough to sustain you to the next one and then the next one. And, I mean, and like I said, it's easy for me now. Take things more serious. Don't the fun side. Every once in a while, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, you can't be a stickler all the time. But I mean, if you're going to jump into something, take it serious. And unfortunately for me, I didn't. I mean, I did, but at the same time, I was having a lot of fun. And you know that. You had seen me multiple times. I think I remember the last time I saw you, I was hammered out of my mind, and we were walking. And I think you didn't even want to have anything to do with me. I think you were just like, "Whoa, dude, just stay away." And I get it. And I was like that a lot. I had fun,
Well, hey, life's short. You got to have a little bit of fun. But okay, so that's revisionist history. Bring me up to speed now. I believe Todd Beard, I believe Todd's even passed away.
Yeah, Todd passed away, and oh God, when?
Was it 2014?
Yeah, it was 2014. I was trying to think of the date because unfortunately my little sister passed away the next day.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Very sorry, Tom.
Was it, Ashley? February? No. Anyway, so yeah, Todd passed away of a massive heart attack, is from what I was told. His girlfriend, they were both upstairs. She went downstairs to do something like an hour or something. She walked back up and he was on the ground and he was gone. He had a massive coronary.
Oh, very sad. And so Affliction, though, I mean, was Todd still steering the ships of it? Had it sold off? Where does Affliction stand today, the brand?
No, so as the brand goes, the other three partners, they got rid of Todd in 2011, and subsequently me, because my loyalties were always to Todd. Like I said, he's the one who put me in the place that I was. He's the one who gave me percentages. Todd, everything. I always say, Todd, everything I had, it was because of Todd. And so I was always loyal to him. And so they got rid of him in 2011, and then me, and then I sold my shares. And, I mean, I couldn't care less. It's the past. So.
I got you. All right, well then let's talk real stuff, because I've invited you on. I have a secret. It's your secret. You told me, and I told nobody. I kept my mouth shut, but you have been recognized with what I view as a tremendous honor. I'd like to leave it at that, but can you take it from here? What is going on in your life?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing that. Out of the blue, I got an email from a gentleman and said, I'm interested in working with you. Would you please call me in Thailand? And the first thing I thought was a phishing email. I'm like, because I get them all the time, oh, your aunt died and you get $1 million, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like really skeptical. So I email him back just thinking, okay, maybe I'll have a little bit of fun. And he emails me again, and I got your website and blah from your Facebook. We're Facebook friends. And so I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, honey, maybe this is serious, legitimate. I don't know. I got the honor of Fairtex Equipment. They asked to do a collaboration with me. Tom Atencio Designs, gloves, shin pads, shorts, T-shirts, etc., whatever. And as you can see in the background, I finalized the contract. I'm doing a deal with them. I just designed 2 pairs of gloves and 2 T-shirts. They'll be available next month. And the gentleman's Leo Katimbak, which he is the VP of Business Development for Fairtex Thailand. And as you may know, they kind of went on a downturn after, I know a couple of years ago, after their San Francisco place shut down and everything. But yeah, I mean, I was so honored, and I was blown away. So as you can see, I mean, I've got all the equipment now. You can see, I mean, look at these gloves, Chael. This is kind of the direction they're going now, and this is what I've
That's
done. Is
beautiful.
these aren't mine. This is another artist, but they're beautiful, and these are 8 ounce. These are for my son, but they're also doing. They did one championships. So
All right.
They did a deal with one. They did a deal with DHL, and now they're making a Mexican style boxing glove, whereas you can see it's longer on the wrist, more Mexican style. So, it's an honor, and I can't even believe, and it's kind of like they're pulling me back in the industry, and I love it. I'm looking forward to going to Thailand and meeting the owner. And aside from that, in the back, you can see another brand. It's called Gas and Grit, and that's my brand. It's a motorcycle brand. It's based in the vintage motorcycle theme, and that's going to be released probably around December as well. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, but I'm going to say December to just be safe. So that's what I got going on.
Tom, that's awesome. That is awesome, and I really do. I mean, I look at that as a tremendous honor. I couldn't imagine somebody like Fairtex, who has been around forever. I mean, they're a staple. I could walk into my garage right now. I've got Fairtex in my garage, right? I mean, congratulations, buddy. Good for you on all that. Tell me this as a fight fan, and I assume that your career is living on the same as mine, which is that of a fan. What are you most looking forward to? Is there any match that's been announced that you're going, man, I can't wait till that comes around?
Oh gosh, last night. I mean, no, I can't think of her name. The two sisters that fought last night.
Sure. The Bullet.
Yeah, man, she's such a phenomenal fighter. I mean, does it really get much better than her?
No.
I was looking forward to that fight. Right now, there's so many new kids coming out, and they are so phenomenal, and they're so well rounded. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't have a particular fight right now that I'm looking forward to, but I'm a huge UFC fan. I hate giving Dana my money, but do I really have a choice if I want to watch the fights? But honestly, that's I'm just a huge fan. I'm always going to be till I die. I'm always going to be a hot fan.
So let's back up a second then. Let's talk a little bit Bullet real fast, because one thing about that fight, Tom, if you watch that thing on mute, you would think this is like any other Valentin Shevchenko fight I've ever seen. If you watched it with the volume on, it appeared that, I mean, the announcers did make that fight seem like it was a little closer and a little bit more competitive than it was. I mean, at the end of the day, it was 4-1. It's generally 5-0, but as far as her being dominant and maintaining her dominance, I think everything's in order.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And that's part of, I mean, eventually she's going to lose. I mean, nobody stays at the top. And I think that is one of the things I love about this sport. And it's not necessarily age. It's not necessarily, you could just, you could have a bad day, or you could just possibly get caught by something. It's just, that's the beauty of this sport, that you just never know. I mean, look at Rafael dos Anjos. He was on a tear a while back. He had a while where he wasn't doing well, and now look at him again. And he to me, he's an exceptional fighter. He is a champion in his mind, and he's got that champion's mind. So I mean, I love watching him fight. When he fought Paul Felder the other night, he looked phenomenal. So that, to me, that's one of the things about, it's not a one-dimensional sport where you see like boxing. Although I love boxing, and like I said, I grew up. It's not a one-dimensional sport. There's so many ways that you can lose, and there's so many ways that even unfortunately, if it goes to a decision, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what a judge is going to see.
All right, Tom, buy or sell? Khabib Nurmagomedov never fights again.
I don't buy it. Sell. Yeah, I don't. I think he's going to fight, and my own. This is from me. I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't know his family. I just don't know why he would quit fighting after his father died. I mean, I understand. I understand loss, but I mean, to me, from my perspective, it would seem that his father groomed him for this. His father raised him to fight. So why would his father want him to stop fighting? That to me, I don't understand.
Sure.
So I think after a grieving period and after time, I think he's going to come back and fight again in his father's honor. I mean, but that's me. I have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah.
None.
And see, Tom, I'm in the same spot. You're left to guess with very limited information. Most guys would fight for one of two reasons. Fame. Khabib's not into it. For whatever reason, he's just not into that drug. Money. He's not into it. For whatever reason, that just doesn't motivate him. And then you're only left with one third option, which is accomplishment, but the guy's achieved everything. So, I mean, it is one of those things. It's one of those things where if I put myself in his shoes, what would I do? But it's hard to put myself in his shoes. I've never been that successful at anything. 29-0, world championship. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a very unique play.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's just crazy. And that's why I think that. I mean, I think that, and it's easy for me to say, again, I'm not in his shoes, and I've lost a brother, I've lost a little sister, cousin that was like a little sister. Justin Levens, he was my closest friend at the time when he passed away. I've lost a lot of people in my life, my father, etc. So I do understand that side of it, the grieving but I think, when you take it as a whole, his father was a part of his whole career. His father was there cheering him. So, again, from my perspective, I would think he would come back to honor his father. But
Sure.
That's just.
Yeah, let's see what happens. All right, Tom, you got anything else you want to get off your chest?
Another thing that's bringing me back in the industry, I've been talking to a buddy of mine, Dean Lamb, with North Star Combat in Minnesota. He wants me to come out and help him. And when they start again, Stephan Bonner's involved, and another Cyrus Fees is also involved. And so they want me to come out and commentate, which I will obviously in 2021. And there's a possibility that we may do something together in that as well. So if that happens, I definitely am looking forward to it. Dean's a really good guy. And hopefully, North Star will continue to grow, and I'm part of that as well.
Well, that's awesome. Tom, great catching up with you. Congrats on all your successes, man. You deserve it. You've worked hard. I look forward to getting myself a pair of those gloves.
That's what I was going to tell you. So what I'll do for you and actually your viewers, if you want, however you want to handle it, I'll send you a couple of pairs of gloves. Obviously a pair for you, one of each for you, t-shirts, whatever you want, Chael. But if you want to do a giveaway, however you want to handle it, that's up to you guys. We'll do some giveaways for Fairtex and help promote Fairtex, and so people can really see the quality. I mean, the quality of their brand is just second to none. And I'm like you said, I'm very honored, and I'm blown away that I'm a part of it. So I'd love to get some to you, and we can do some t-shirts and some gloves, and you can do a giveaway however you want to handle that.
Super cool. I appreciate that. I will take you up on that. We will do it through social media. And Tom, enjoy your day. Thank you for the time, buddy.
Thanks, Chael. Always great to see you, bud.
All right, guys. Tom Atencio, and I think we got some clarity there. I mean, there has been many things I have had to speculate through guessing and attempting to connect the dots as it had to do with Affliction. I mean, it was a flash in the pan, boom. It was here. It was setting the world's on fire, boom. It was gone. And I think that Tom really helped us. If any of you have been like me, if any of you have been curious or wanted some clarity, we just heard it from the man himself.